Okay, so there are just two tabs left. One tab is called Citing Sources. So if you click that, it just goes over how to properly cite. And depending which class you're in, 303 or 302, it tells you the way to go. Our class is 303, so because we are writing for business and the professions, we use MLA formatting. So it just gives you a lot of different pieces of information. It gives you a few examples. It gives you where to find more examples, and it also links Purdue OWL, which is a great resource to help you generate the proper MLA citations. There's also another option that they've given you. If you feel like you need more support, this will also help you streamline how you're citing, and it will make it the easiest possible way of organizing and doing that. So you can create a RefWorks account and they give you instructions on how to do that. So please be mindful of those things. Going back to the top, there is this tab called Get Help, and Get Help is really important. So there's a couple of different options that I just want to tell you. One, you're also allowed to make an appointment with a librarian. They will talk to you. They can, I'm assuming, chat with you on the phone, maybe even FaceTime with you, depending whether you're on or off campus. But calling is great just to get quick clarification. Whoever is on duty will answer and they can walk you through how to do something more specifically. Emailing is also a great thing. You can type out what you're dealing with more specifically, and then they can get back to you. But my personal favorite is the chat option, and I'm just going to click it to show you what it looks like. If you click this chat option, you'll see that you are able to type a question that's very specific to a librarian who is on chat duty. So you can say something like, I have chosen the topic of food insecurity amongst Rutgers University, New Brunswick students, but I'm having a lot of difficulty with search terms when I'm researching, as well as just finding data. So you can just ask them that, and then they'll say, why don't you try this for search terms? Or they'll say something like, have you tried this database? So it'll be a real-time chat as if you're sort of texting them or instant messaging them, and you can come to a conclusion together as to what the best option is. This is also great if you have an article and you wanted to share it with them and you're so unsure if it's scholarly or popular, you can throw that in there. Anything you need help with, they will help you. Okay, so going on, the last part of this screencast is just chapter 4, and I really want you to read chapter 4 pretty thoroughly, but I just wanted to go over the difference between popular, scholarly, and professional sources. So I'm just going to highlight a few things here, and this is in your textbook, and it's, let's see what page it's on. It is on page 135. So like I said before, read all of chapter 4 because it will be best for you. But you'll see here, it really talks a lot about differentiating between primary and secondary sources. So I'm just going to spend some time explaining that to you, and then I will let you go and you can hopefully start this research process based off of the topic that you have chosen. Okay, so primary research is a synonym for fieldwork. And I really just want to spend some time talking about the importance of fieldwork, the benefits it can add to a proposal that you are researching, and what its purpose is and how it sort of looks or appears. So primary research is research that you specifically conduct on your own. So if you're focusing on students at Rutgers and their mental health, it's almost impossible that you're going to find specific data that shows about mental illness, depression, any of that at Rutgers because it's confidential. So you might think it's best for me to survey a bunch of people who go to Rutgers just to get their feedback. It can be an anonymous survey, but if you get 100 people to respond and most of them say, yes, I have felt extremely stressed out, especially with little resources to help me, that will help you establish that this problem exists at Rutgers. So it's almost a way for you to kind of gather the data you need if you can't quite find it. And this is often really helpful in your problem section where you're trying to define something specific about your problem or within your population. So I've highlighted in green here the forms that primary research or fieldwork comes in. So you might be conducting an experiment. Like I just said, conducting surveys and using Google Forms for those surveys is really exceptional. You can ask questions, you can vary the way in which students can respond. And what it will also do when your survey closes, it will also create data and charts and tables for you. And those will be helpful when we do our oral presentation as well as our final proposal. So, in addition to surveys, you can also conduct questionnaires. You might directly observe what's going on and take notes. You can also interview people or email them as an interview. And these are just general examples for primary research. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Secondary research is other research that you need to conduct. So I'm just going to go over elements of secondary research. So there are 3 types, and I'm just going to go through them with you. And I just want to tell you, picture this as a triangle. I wish I could draw a triangle here. But at the top, these are our most credible sources. We have scholarly sources, and this is what the bulk of your research should consist of. Half of your sources, no matter what the assignment, should be scholarly sources. So scholarly sources are peer-reviewed journal articles. And when something is peer-reviewed, it just means that it's going through a pretty intensive process to get published. There are normally a board of peer reviewers, and they are experts in the field and they are anonymous. And what essentially happens is, if you are a PhD student or a professor who's publishing work, you'll normally write your article to the best of your ability, and you'll send it to the board of peer reviewers. They will look at your article, and a few things may happen. One, they may tell you, this is great, we are publishing it, it is perfect. But more likely than not, they'll send it back to you and they will tell you, this shows a lot of potential, but you need to expand more here, rethink this section, perhaps take this out and add a bunch about this. So they'll kind of redirect you. It's almost like how your professors give you feedback on your writing. So just something to keep in mind there. And sometimes they'll just say, no, this is not on track, we cannot publish it. But this whole process makes these articles the most credible because they have to go through this really rigorous process. So just make sure that you're understanding that. You will see that discussions reference accepted concepts and models are present in these scholarly journals. The readings oftentimes are quite difficult because they're using academic and very sophisticated language, and it's specialized vocabulary. These are often found in college and university libraries. We often think of scholarly journals as a place where we find articles like this, but remember, when you are searching, you want to make sure on the library you are checking off scholarly or peer-reviewed, and you are guaranteed to get them as a result. And that's in the next and last video as an example to sort of show you a search. Next, we're moving on to professional sources. These are sources that are normally written by practitioners or professionals in the field. So these can come in the form of newsletters, journals, magazines, and websites. These are normally written about successful companies or different methodologies. Every once in a while, you'll find models of success that are talked about. So you know that I'm a high school English teacher. If I were to write an article about differentiating in the AP literature classroom and it gets published in an education magazine, that would be a professional source. It's not scholarly because I didn't go through that whole crazy, intense peer review process, but I'm still an expert in that field and I'm publishing about my experience in that field. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And lastly, we have popular sources. And these are the sources that are easily and most readily accessible to the general public. So we have things like newspaper articles, magazine articles, websites, perhaps blogs. They are public. Anyone can read them. They're easy to read and understand. They're written for the general public. These are called popular sources. They have the least amount of credibility. They are still good sources to use, but just be mindful. The bulk of your sources need to be these scholarly sources because they are the most credible. So these are often used to kind of supplement our scholarly and professional sources. So hopefully that helps. And the rest of the chapter, I'm just expecting you to kind of read on your own. There's a lot of good information, but I just wanted to talk about source types.